Welcome to Feminist Question Time, brought to you by Women's Declaration International, the leading global organisation defending women's sex-based rights against the threats posed by gender identity ideology. There's more information on our website, womensdeclaration.com, where you will find our Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights, which has been signed by 36,108 people from 160 countries and is supported by 506 organisations. We have many volunteer activists, including country contacts from every continent, engaged in defending women's rights. Do join us as a volunteer. I'm really pleased to say today our panelists are Minakshi Bastapure from India, the title of her talk is India's Thriving Youth-Led Activism, Blindsided by Gender Ideology. The second speaker we have is Carol Hunter from Ireland, from Wicklow Women for Women. She's going to talk about how to organise a local meeting, so really explain how anybody who wants to organise a local meeting can do it and go through the process of that. To just share this good practice that she's managed to do in Wicklow in Ireland. Then we're going to hear from Linda Blade from Canada. She's going to do an update on the International Consortium on Female Sport. And then we are going to hear from me on the Women's Declaration International membership launch. So to explain about how that's going to work and officially launch our membership option, which is going to be great. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, and I'm so delighted to welcome you, Minakshi. Minakshi Bastapure is from India. She's a 22-year-old data engineer interested in creating awareness about liberal patriarchy, and the title of Minakshi's talk is India's Thriving Youth-Led Activism, Blindsided by Gender Ideology. So welcome, Minakshi, and over to you.
I'll be talking about India's thriving youth-led activism being blindsided by gender ideology. So India has had a glorious history of youth-led activism. It has led to many social reforms, including India's independence itself. Since past few years, students in several major universities and cities have been protesting about issues such as hikes in fees, reduction of seats, cutback in stipends, sexual harassment, sexism, casteism, and other forms of oppressive systems at universities. According to the data of National Crime Record Bureau, students' protest cases nearly doubled between 2014 and 2018. 2014 was also the year when the right-wing party BJP came into power. So I will go over some of the important and significant youth-led protest in the recent history. So one of them is Pinjra Tod, meaning break the cage movement that started in 2015. It grew out of a simple Facebook page after a university called Jamia Millia Islamia issued a notice imposing 8 p.m. curfew for female students in 2015. So the young women around the country, they started sharing their stories about the attitudes of the landlords and the guards, wardens and principals on a Facebook page. Pinjra Tod challenged the curfews for women, moral policing, victim shaming, body shaming, higher prices for women's hostels, lack of accommodation, and also public access, among others. They also focused on ensuring that universities establish a sexual harassment committee. Their methods include a change.org petition, spray painting messages of resistance on the campus. Another protest happened in 2016 after the death of Rohit Vemula, who was a Dalit scholar. Dalits are a marginalized community in India. So he was doing PhD at the University of Hyderabad, and the university accused him of allegedly assaulting an ABVP leader in campus. So ABVP is the student wing of the ruling right-wing party. So he was accused of assaulting an ABVP leader, after which he was suspended from the university, and his access within the campus was also limited by the college authority. After that, he hanged himself, and over this, huge protest happened in the southern parts of India as well as in the Delhi, which is the national capital of India. Thousands of students came on the streets and fought against this. Another protest happened over the execution of Afzal Guru in 2016. It started at Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. Afzal Guru was convicted of carrying out an attack in parliament in 2001. So during the protest, the president of the student union, Kanhaiya Kumar, was slapped with sedition charges and he was arrested. So thousands of students, protested against this, and several of them were suspended, and many were slapped with hefty fines. Another one also from JNU in 2019. So JNU, the Jawaharlal Nehru University, the students from the university staged huge demonstrations over steep hike in fees. Nearly 600 police personnel were deployed to keep the situation under control. Terming the situation an academic emergency, students of the university demanded removal of their vice chancellor. Followed by the same, a partial rollback was announced by the authorities of the university. Protests against CAA in 2019. CAA stands for Citizenship Amendment Act. It was an act that was passed in the parliament in December 2019. It was a controversial citizenship law that is discriminatory towards Muslims. So students from the Assam Students Union, Jamia Millia Islamia, Aligarh Muslim University, and many others staged huge protests over the legislation. Nationwide protests were happening, and situation turned violent after the police opened fire inside the Jamia and Aligarh Muslim University campuses. Section 144, which is about prohibiting public gathering, was imposed in several parts of the country, and internet was shut down. As you can see, the youth of the country is coming on streets fighting against the dictatorship of the right-wing party, the bigotry, the anti-Muslim bigotry, may it be classism, may it be sexism, many other things. But on the other hand, according to LGBT India resource, more than 75 premier public and private institutions in India now have queer collectives. So these queer collectives at campuses, they create awareness about homosexuality, although they seldom use homosexuality anymore. They mostly use the term queer. They are also heavily focused on gender neutral spaces and gender affirming treatments, even for minors. Some also promote prostitution. So the country's first and foremost one is called Sathi. It is the IIT Bombay's queer collective. IIT Bombay stands for Indian Institute of Technology. It is the most prestigious engineering institute in the country. Its queer collective was founded in 2011 by a faculty member and 2 students. It got official recognition in 2020, and it delivers presentations on gender sensitivity during orientation for freshers. This is worrisome since it being the most prestigious engineering institute in the country, and the aspiring engineers and the parents, they work hard to get their children into this institute, and once they are in, they get admitted into the college. They are they are told that sex is not a binary and it is a spectrum and all that, and these young people, these freshers, they'll believe it because they want to fit in, they want to belong, they don't want to get into trouble, and they don't want to cause any trouble. Another important queer collective is at Ashoka University. It is a private liberal arts university. So in December 2018, Ashoka University removed the men's and women's signs from the washrooms at the university and replaced them with gender neutral. So the queer collective there is a Trans Solidarity Fund at Ashoka University, started by the Feminist Collective and the Queer Collective, and they raise funds for what they call is gender reaffirming surgery. Nalsar University of Law, which is a premier law university in the country, They recently designated one floor on its campus as a gender neutral space with rooms allotted to students who identify themselves as members of the LGBTQ plus community. In 2015, the university also issued a gender neutral graduation certificate to a student who did not wish to be identified with Mr. or Miss, but with something that I cannot pronounce. The queer collective of the Nalsar is also interested in bashing on J.K. Rowling. They organized a study circle session on J.K. Rowling's essay Activism. Tata Institute of Social Sciences. It is a renowned social sciences institution in the country. Its queer collective was established in 2015. In April 2018, the institute has designated the ground floor of an existing girls' hostel to accommodate gender non-conforming students admitted to the institute. And the queer collective is not only it is demanding these gender neutral spaces and everything and promoting harmful cosmetic surgeries. They are also against the anti-trafficking bill. They are also promoting prostitution. So to sum it up, the following institutions have gender neutral hostels and or toilets so far. Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Public Law School, Nalsar, Tezpur University in Assam, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, Ashoka University, Ambedkar University, and the University of Hyderabad. And these are like premier institutes in the country, and they are now captured by the gender ideology. And most of these changes came after the lobbying and the demands from the queer collectives of the campus. Now, everything is about the tea. Whatever youth activism happens in the country, it is mostly about the tea. So recently in April this year, there is this Indraprastha College for Women, which is affiliated to Delhi University. And the students were celebrating their annual college festival. And thousands of men gather around the college campus, as you can see the left side. So these men gather around the campus, and many of them trespassed into the college, catcalled, harassed the female students there, and also spat on the volunteers who were trying to keep them out of the campus. The authorities of the college failed in taking preventive measures from preventing something like this. And also they handled the situation very poorly. They ushered the female students into their dorms and locked the doors. And similar incidents have happened at Delhi University's other women-only colleges like Miranda House and Gagi College. So students protested, of course, after this. But as you can see in the right side, one poster says, "Speak up against sexual harassment of women." And the other poster says, "An administration that does not ensure a safe campus for women, queer, trans people does not deserve to stay." So the students, the youth of the country now is not realizing that these thousands of men that are gathered around the campus who are being called perverts and trespassers at this moment, they just have to declare that they self-identify as women and wear a lipstick and add a wig and step into the college through the gate instead of trespassing through the walls. They're making it very easy for these perverts to enter women's spaces. I have since I was a child, I've been listening to the adults ranting about how useless and pathetic the young generations are. But the young generations, they want to change the world. They want to do something better, make this world a better place, and they're on the streets fighting for it against the dictatorship of the government. And despite knowing the consequences for it, there is a lot at stake for the future generations already. Like there's unemployment, there is climate crisis, there is food deprivation, casteism, racism, and capitalism and misogyny, everything. raising its tentacles to pick up and consume a whole. So it is not only shameful of the liberal society to sway them away towards a non-issue, that it is forcing them to stare at their own destruction by promoting this ideology. Makes me wonder what the end game is going to look like. And we should resist this cancer at all cost, and protect the future generations from this. Thank you.
How many people are feeling that the trans bit, the all about the tea bit, is bad, or do you think everybody's going along with it because of the wave of other things?
Most of the people on internet are going along with this, but if you talk to people in person, most of them laugh at this, like this is some Western bullshit that is coming to India, and they laugh at this. They're not going along with this if you talk to people in person. But on the internet, especially the youth and the liberal communities, they are going along with this.
Yeah. And how about so the youth organizations like student unions, are they absolutely going with it?
Yes, most of them, yes. I have not heard of any liberal or left-wing youth wing or students wing that is opposing this. The ones who are opposing this, the ones who are opposing this, they're mostly right-wing unions.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it from the feminist perspective. They have their own agenda. They want to keep their stereotypes.
Yeah, in a fixed way, I guess. I went to Bologna in Italy, which is called Red Bologna for its coloured brick, but mostly because it's very left wing, and there was no sign. It's very sort of lesbian and gay. It's always been a lesbian and gay area. Just walked down the street. The only sign of trans stuff was the union, the Confederation of Free Trade Unions, had flags everywhere, just absolutely everywhere, the queer flags, the trans flags. Now, how are unions doing in India? Are they really promoting the trans activism?
Yes, most of it is, behind the doors. They're not, like banners and everything. It's mostly happening on Instagram and Twitter and behind the doors, lobbying the politicians and the important people and the celebrities and stuff like that. They're not yet in the public.
How about you, Minakshi? It's so lovely to see you, your analysis. How did you come to understand the world this way from, probably wherever you were? How did you arrive at this position?
I could not keep my head in the sand anymore, I guess. I was a liberal feminist before, and I even supported the trans ideology. And I'm a porn addict, and I even supported pornography and everything. But in the pandemic, I had I had plenty of time to go over all these things and, think clearly. So I started reading books, and then I decided that I cannot keep my head in the mud anymore.
Yeah. And how did you find out? Because you said that you were in touch with this Australian woman who liked one of your posts. Can you tell that some of the women here, because then we can do it again, we can try to engage with young people. How did her intervention help you?
I don't remember clearly, but it was an old lady from Australia, I guess, and her whole account was about radfem post. Every post on her account was about radical feminism and how liberal feminism is just an extension of patriarchy and everything. And in the beginning, like, she was an angry woman. I did not like it. I wanted a nice woman, I guess. So I was like, why is this woman so angry? But whatever she was saying, it made sense. And I started asking her questions about different things, about feminist pornography. She was like, pornography is prostitution on tape. And I was like, what about feminist pornography? It can be good and empowering. And I started asking her questions, and she answered them. She answered them, and I like it when somebody answers my questions. instead of ignoring them and telling me that it is a stupid question. So, and after that, I went to the internet and started, Wikipedia and everything, but most of the internet hates radical feminism. So then I bought Intercourse by Andrea Dworkin, and it made sense. It was agonizing, very agonizing and depressing, but it made sense, and that's how I got into it. I started buying and reading more books, radical feminist books, and found this radical feminist community on Twitter and Instagram, and then I found about WDI and Feminist Current. Yeah, and that's how I got into it.
That's so fantastic.
And I'm not going back to liberal feminism now.
No, there's no way back, really, is there? Yeah.
I'm only moving forward from now.
And we will now go to our next speaker, who is Carol Hunter. Carol Hunter is a member of Wicklow Women for Women. She is living in Ireland and is going to talk to us about how to organise a local meeting. And I'm going to chat to you and ask you some questions. But so you came on a while back and you had set up a local meeting, and I was really impressed with the way that you managed to get local councillors, teachers, quite a lot of local people, and maybe some journalists along, which just seemed like a really straightforward, just call a meeting and people came. Would you be able to tell us how you did that, bearing in mind that quite a lot of women here don't know how to do that thing?
Wicklow Women for Women set up the meeting, not me, Carol Hunter. I mean, as one of them, of course, I helped, but I don't want to give the idea that that I'm sort of a leader of this particular group. Yeah, I think I had a quick look through the timeline of this. We went to a Women's Space Conference, the first real national conference at the event that there had been in Ireland, on the 12th of November. We randomly met in the bar, the group of us, and discovered we were going home on the same train. I think there were 4 or 5 of us. Started chatting and said something has to be done about this. Realized we lived close to each other. And so the next day I set up a WhatsApp group so we could start talking. And immediately all that great big stuff started spilling out, as it does. We had our first proper meeting on the 19th of November. There were 7 of us by this time. And we were thinking about doing letter writing and everything like that as a way forward in this. And then I can't remember which one of us it was. We just said, well, why don't we have a meeting? And instead of thinking of all the reasons why we couldn't have a meeting, we thought of all the reasons why it was a good idea. So I think that's probably the first step. You have a band of a small group of people, and they needn't necessarily have done anything activist in the past at all. You just get together, you discover that you all care about this, and you realize that you've got to do something about it, even in a really small way, that your voice can make a little bit of a difference. And so I guess you've got to have an activist mindset, but it can be as few as 4 or 5 people. You need that, I think, just to take the strain off each other and for the enthusiasm building bit of the exercise.
Yeah. I know that in local areas, there are normally buildings like church halls that are very cheap to hire, or schools. You can sometimes hire schools, and also local councillors. Well, the council might be promoting gender identity ideology. Often some of those councillors, the local representatives, could be worried about it or just believe in free speech. And I think things have got to the stage where we're going to have a lot more open doors to that. But yeah, do continue about how you did it.
Yeah, I mean, we had our first event on the 24th of January. So basically there was about a month with Christmas in the middle that we decided to do this. And we, of course, talked about a venue, and venue is important. Round here, we decided, because there's not an awful lot of choice, but there was a local hotel, and we just decided, quite frankly, that we were going to take the cost of it on our shoulders and just split it as a way of getting started. it's convenient locally, this hotel. It has car parking. At a room, they do conferencing, so we knew that we could get projection, you know, and things like that. So there's a smart television system. And we reckoned about room for about 60 people. So that's what we thought about doing. We then thought about what topic would most grab people, because we wanted something that was a real hook to get people in. And we were also aware of the fact that the area we live in is very, very woke. So we knew that we might be fighting against the current here to a large extent. Nonetheless, so I went along to the local hotel and said, how much will your room be for the evening? And they didn't even ask. They said, what's it for? And I said, it's for Wicklow Women for Women talking about education.
Brilliant.
And they said, just fine, you know. So, which is what we were doing. A bit economical with the truth there, but never mind, it was exactly what we were doing, because we decided that education is a good hook. Children, whatever else is going on around here, people, women have children in school, and there are a lot of changes, like in the UK and elsewhere, there are lots of changes going on with the curriculum at the moment. And they're really pushing hard on introducing gender ideology into schools through the curriculum, through all age groups. And so we reckoned that most people don't know this is happening. This would be, we'd use it as an information session for people to come along and ask questions about what was happening.
And what was the title of your meeting?
We just planned a little A5 leaflet, which we had printed off cheaply on the internet. We designed it ourselves. We decided we needed a logo. So we there again went on the internet and went to one of these free logo type sites and came up with something which was extremely amateurish, but will do. We set up an email address, Wicklow Women for Women, and also a Twitter account, so that we could put this on the leaflet as well. And the leaflet was basically a series of questions. Do you know what's on the new curriculum? Has anybody explained it to you? Do you know these basics? Would you like to come along and discuss this? So, and the venue. So very top line stuff. Nothing anybody could hook onto as being hateful or as being too controversial, perhaps, you know. So we deliberately kept it very, very neutral in its wording, but I don't think there would have been any misunderstanding where what our position might be on it, but nonetheless, it was very neutral. We then decided that we could do with some speakers for this rather than just us. So we basically just randomly contacted people. And that's it. I think you've just really got to do that. You've got to randomly put yourself out there and say, hi, you don't know me at all, but we are, and we're concerned about this. We know you're concerned about this. We're doing this talk. Any chance that somebody can come along and talk to us about it? So we got in touch with the Countess, which is one of the bigger nationwide pressure groups here on our side, and they sent along somebody who they were preparing stuff anyway about the curriculum. So they had a ready expert, if you will, a woman who lived not that far away and had children, so was very user-friendly from this point of view. And we tried Stella O'Malley, and she said yes.
Wow.
So
did you put that on your leaflet? Were they on your leaflet, or is your leaflet, or did they? Yes. Yeah. But they probably, do you think people would have come anyway? You didn't need the names.
I think they would have done, because I don't think the names meant a thing to them. Mm. Quite frankly, I don't think it meant anything to them. But we then decided that we would contact every single councillor and the local TDs, that's our MPs. We were really unsure about how to advertise this. because we were worried about what could or couldn't happen. We were all very determined to be brave, but we didn't know. So we discussed doing things like standing outside school gates and handing out the leaflets. And in the end, we didn't really do that. A bit of it. A lot of it was word of mouth in the end, and just saying to people that we knew, tell other people. So we did have there were some people we knew who were teachers, and got in touch with a couple of them and asked them to spread the message. So basically that's it. We put it out there. And then we had absolutely no idea what would happen. So
and it's I think there's two things that, well, I really like the way that you just said it will do. I really agree with that rather than thinking things going to be very good or excellent or even good, I think that just saying, oh, the logo will do, and if it turns out, if I think that's enough, because just actually doing it turns out it was quite a big success, and then will precipitate more. And it sounds as if it was a bit of a surprise how successful it was.
We were astonished.
Yeah.
We had literally gone along thinking, well, if nobody at all turns up, we just go and have a drink in the bar. That's basically what we'll do. And I can still remember it was started at 7:30 in the evening, and by 7:25, there were about 8 people there, and I was getting quite sort of and being quite British about it. They're not here yet. Forgetting, of course, even though I am now Irish and I've lived here for a long time, that everybody started arriving at 20 to 8, that sort of thing. And then people just arrived, and we had over 60 people turned up.
Wow.
The leader of the county council came with his wife. A few other councillors came. None of our local MPs came, but we weren't exactly surprised about that. What turned out to be a lot of teachers, some of our neighbours, people we knew turned up, and family, but basically it was people we didn't know, and they turned up and they spoke.
So when you say they spoke, so you had your 2 speakers, and then were there lots of conversations or workshops?
We actually had 3 speakers, because we had Kerry Black, who tweets as Fem Loves, came down from the north to talk from a lesbian perspective as well, which we thought would sort of tie in with the transing away the gay bit and things like that can happen in schools as a result of curriculum changes and what have you. So she was there as well. So we covered basically Sandra from the Countess talked about the actual nuts and bolts of the curriculum. Stella talked about gender ideology in regards to children and what that can do, and Kerry talked about that gay perspective on things, and then the audience, especially the teachers, really wanted to talk about it and about the problems they're having in their classrooms.
And how did that work? Did you break into groups, or did you just all talk in this big room?
Yeah, basically. Yes. It wasn't hugely big, the room. It worked without a microphone, in fact, so somebody standing up could just be heard. And they did. They spoke. And, we had a mother who revealed that her daughter of 14 was a desister, how strongly she felt about it. The atmosphere was really engaged. And meaningful, and the head of one of the local, no, they're not local, they're national media people. We did we did contact the local newspapers and things like that as well to see if anybody would come. But I think one of them turned up. But more to the point, there is a media company called Gript here in Ireland who do a lot of this more left field reporting. And so they sent somebody along. They also, I think they were hooked by the idea of Stella O'Malley being there. That's, if we hadn't had her, they wouldn't have bothered, but we did, and they wanted to interview her. So they did that. And then afterwards, they interviewed one of us as well. And that helped get everything out there.
That's so fantastic. Yeah.
I think
and what's you going to do now? Have you got plans for the future?
The other really important thing to do is to get email addresses from everybody there. Just grab them. Get email addresses for absolutely everybody the whole time. And so once you've got your email contact list, then you get in touch with them. You find out that they might have other networks going on at a very, very low level, grassroots level of friends, and you tie in with them. So at the moment on my contact list, it's not very big numbers as these things go, but I have about 60 people throughout the country now on my contact lists. So we're encouraging them to set up locally in the same way that we did. We're encouraging them trying to send out a newsletter sort of email to them to encourage them about writing letters. We got a lot of names as well from the GenSpect conference. So there are lots of therapists. So there are lots of professional people on these contact lists now, as well as just ordinary people like me. Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that it's got to a stage now where loads of people are peak transing and they want to talk about it. And so I've had a few encounters with people who've just very recently peak transed, and they would like to just talk about it for 5 days, just non-stop. And so I've a few times said, look, I just don't have 5 days to talk to you about this right now. But I think that's a function that we can play, that you've played, and we can copy you, is by setting up these meetings and then there being a bar afterwards, like in Standing for Women, everyone goes to the pub, then there's lots of chance for everybody to really, they don't just want to hear, they want to say their thing, don't they? And really participate.
The next thing we're doing on the 8th of July, we're having a picnic.
Oh, wow. So brilliant.
We're having a picnic now. I live near the sea. So a nearby town has very easy rail access, for example. And the station's right next to the beach and the promenade. So we'll meet next to the bandstand. People can bring their kids and we will have a real social get together for chatting and everything like that. So if the worst comes to the worst and it pours with rain, there is the pub across the road.
And it's going to look really bad visuals, isn't it, if trans rights activists try to stop Wicklow Women for Women having a picnic.
In the end, nobody turned up. I mean, I had friends who said, I'm crossing my fingers for you. We hope you'll be safe. And, nobody has actually ever... I get more kickback from my kids than I do from anybody else, I'll tell you, unfortunately. But so we're doing that. And the next meeting, because I want to organize another meeting in the near future, will be about women's rights. I really want to prioritize women's rights as opposed to what's going on in schools and things like that, because I think I think the women's rights bit is beginning to slip a little bit off the agenda. In a meaningful way. So that will be the next thing. So I intend to just invite absolutely anybody that I think of who will be important and who might come and talk to us.
Okay, we're going to now go to our next speaker, who is Linda Blade. She's a former national champion of Canada in track and field, heptathlon. She's got a PhD in kinesiology, and for the past 26 years has run a private consulting business as sport performance professional coach in Edmonton, Alberta, working with athletes in over 15 sports, beginner to elite. Since 2014, Linda has also served as president of the board for Athletics Alberta, where she has a duty to represent the province of Alberta at Canadian national sport policy meetings. In a bid to increase public awareness of threats posed by gender ideology, Linda has partnered with the journalist Barbara Kay to author a new book, which is not quite so new now, but is still fantastic, titled Unsporting: How Trans Activism and Science Denial Are Destroying Sport. So Linda is also the country contact for Canada for WDI. And thank you so much for joining us, Linda, and over to you to do your talk.
In early May, I stepped down as president of Athletics Alberta after 9 years, and I should have corrected that on your bio there, Joe. I'm sorry, but anyway, it was time to move on. Normally, presidents of the association only last about 6 years, and then I was going to step down before COVID, and then the complexity of COVID compelled me to stay on and help the association through that point. But yes, I am now no longer president, but during that time, we established a very strong sex-based policy for eligibility in sport. And so I feel like we were pretty safe in terms of me stepping aside and having someone else step in. And so, yeah, it's going well in terms of that particular association. Now, I need to quickly get into my presentation because there is so much that's been happening. This is an update because you've probably seen, if you were at the presentation I did in February, this was the same image you would have seen back then. I was introducing a new international group, an umbrella group of different organizations who are advocating for women's sex-based rights in sports. The reason we set this up was because the background quickly was just that there was nobody at the negotiating table at the Olympic Committee level. At the international level, it was only consulting, these organizations were only consulting trans activists. There were no women advocating for the 50% of the global population who happen to be women and girls. And we realized if the guy at the top of the IOC just went down the hall and got his secretary and like who represents the female voice? We realized we had to collaborate in a very similar fashion to the Women's Declaration, actually, to actually have a collective that we could claim to be the women's voice in sport. So this is our web page, if you're interested in looking at it. ICFS, International Consortium on Female Sport.org. And we definitely align with Women's Declaration, Article 7, reaffirming women's rights to same opportunities as men to participate actively in sports and physical education. So we are completely aligned with Women's Declaration. So this is what our site looks like. Our founding principle, fairness and safety for female athletes in sport, is ensured by having a dedicated category for those born female. You can have all kinds of other categories in sport, but you have to have one that's female only. So our purpose is to serve as the key international lobby group to advocate for the preservation of female sports categories. So wherever it's necessary to send one of our representatives to a meeting internationally, nationally, to represent women and girls who are too afraid to speak, that's where we want to be. So this was our launch in January 2023. And again, this is one of the posters. And we have two types of memberships. We have core members and we have affiliate members. I'll get to the affiliate membership at the end just to explain a little bit about that, because every one of you can be an affiliate member. The core members come from the following 10 countries: USA, UK, Spain, Canada, France, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, El Salvador, and most recently, we have had the Countess join us from Ireland. We are so happy and pleased to have the Countess join us. So one of our first acts as an ICFS organization was to join Icons Women at the NC2A rally at the NC2A convention in Texas. And this is a video, and we're going to play it, of Riley Gaines serving notice to the NC2A officials that there could be litigation if they don't change their policy on Leah Thomas and that sort of thing. We all stood together, marched down the sidewalk, and served NC2A officials with a warning that if they continue to promote sex discrimination against women and girls in sport, there will be legal action. We have had lots of different types of advocacy on social media. We've been exposing the nonsense. Again, in January and February, we came across the gentleman in the middle in the black jersey, Tiffany Newell, who was running and setting master's records. You see on the far left, there's a master's record that listed for Tiffany Newell as, you know, champion. It was just so crazy. And so we profiled that on our ICFS site. It was actually went quite viral. And I think since that point, Tiffany Newell became aware that women were upset. So he actually stepped aside. He doesn't compete there anymore. So that was pretty successful in my opinion. At the top, you just see various examples. Like at the top, you have this Valentino Petrillo gentleman who's in the visually impaired women's masters races. Of course, in the middle there, you know, it's just Italian women. I don't know why they're posing with him, but anyway. And then we have, you know, other people. Now that we exist, you know, we like the Lobos race in Mexico. The person standing on second position is a male in the women's race, cycling race. Cycling is pathetic. They have so many men in women's cycling. It's crazy. And so we are, by existing, we're getting a lot of information, I guess, about where the men are coming into the women's sports. And we do letters, like we've written so many different letters to organizations, and it's posted on our site under media. You can see the letter to the ICU, the International Cycling Union. Lately, there was one, most recent letter was to the hang gliding and paragliding. There, you know, they even have sort of a gender neutral category, alternative trans category, and yet males still come into the women's competition. It's crazy. And so World Athletics, we've sent a letter. This was back in January as well. I was so pleased. All of us, of course, celebrated when World Athletics put out their policy and at the end of March, saying that there is the female category, women's category is female only at the high performance level. Of course, in Canada, we still have to deal with grassroots level and what's happening there. And there's many terrible things going on. But anyway, so you can see that we have been engaged in letters to organizations, a lot of them open. The last image down below with the weightlifter, this is a special case. This was the first active Canadian female athlete who, April Hutchinson, competes for the Canadian Powerlifting Union. And she approached Icons Women in the States saying, my organization association allows a man to compete in the women's category. And then since Icons is under the umbrella of ICFS, they also shared it around. And I found out as a Canadian, I was happy to see an athlete speaking out. So we decided we would help April because April had been depressed about this for some time and didn't know what to do. And so she came and we started advocating on her behalf through the ICFS. And then what we decided to do, we found out that the powerlifting, and just for context, powerlifting is one of those sports, you know, because of the strength and weightlifting, where it's the most difference between men and women. So it's even the most absurd that a male should be in the women's section. So we did a protest in February 16th. It was the national championships, happened to be in Richmond, British Columbia, near Vancouver. And so I just put out there that we were going to show up. We first thought we'd do a sidewalk protest. And I thought, well, why would we do that? Why don't we just go in and have the XY doesn't equal XX on the front of our jerseys and our ICFS logo on the back of our jerseys, and just cheer for the women who are in the competition and have to endure competing against a male athlete. So we just thought we would clap for the women, be polite, but we'd clap for the women. And then when the male athlete is on the podium, we'd stand and turn our backs and they would see our logo. So we just were in the room. Basically, we paid our admission to go and cheer on the women. And then here's what happened next. There's a series of videos, so I'll take you through it. So listen, if you can, to the audio here.
Here we have a man in the women's category. Look at all these
You can hear cheat, boo. Most of them were cheering for him, though. Just by showing up and being cheering, you know, like anybody else. And of course, some of us were saying boo, but just because we were there, then the competition organizer and president of the ITU tried to.
Here we have a man in the
tried to kick us out. So here's Christine. Christine's on the call right now. Christine Lills. Anyway, I'm going to show you the video where they were trying to kick us out.
No? Okay.
Listen, I have a RCMP officer who said if there's trouble, I should call her. So I'll call her.
What are you calling the police for? We're respectfully here, cheering for women.
This is a private event. You guys
We paid to get in here.
That's correct. And that admission is revoked. This is supposed to be a safe
We are
space.
cheering for women. It is safe. How are we making it unsafe? Can you tell me how you're making it?
All right. And so that didn't work. So then they got the hotel manager, because this was a platform and a conference room and a hotel. So they got the Sheraton manager to try to kick us out.
So if you're refusing to leave, then I just do want you to know that we're going to have to take it to another step. But I'm formally letting you know that
Samuel St. Pierre, 644 pounds. Here comes St. Pierre.
We're here cheering for women.
After him comes Fish.
I'm just letting you know, if you're not willing to come, then I will have to go to the next level. Okay? So I'm just letting you know. So you're refusing to leave, correct?
We are here cheering for women. We paid to get in just like everybody else.
Okay. So you're refusing to
Ladies and gentlemen,
Why should we have to leave? Tell me what the reason is we need to
to
leave.
Vancouver, the
What's the
very last
reason?
city of powerlifting, where the grass is
What? We
green.
paid to get in. We didn't.
Police outside.
Cheering. If you don't have a reason, what would the RCMP be here for?
You're on my property. I can ask.
Okay, I paid to get in. So what's the reason?
413.4.
That's not a reason.
Jacob.
These people have signs. Those people have signs. These people are cheering. So are we.
7 for Jacob.
Thank you. I just.
So of course that went so viral, because thanks to Minakshi Smith, who put it on I think it was Icon's Women site, and people were retweeting a lot, of course, and it was so obvious that somehow we're not allowed to be in there cheering for our fellow female competitors, fellow female, persons in sport, and yet everybody else can be cheering on a male without any trouble whatsoever. That was very revealing to us. In fact, it was just so big news that it's, I thought, initially I just thought we'd show up and sit there and nobody would notice, but these people made our moment. So we were interviewed the first time about this on CBC National News. So that sort of did make way. Okay, so then we have other things going on. We have, because we are an umbrella group, this was a beautiful moment in early May, where our Spanish-speaking colleagues, Irene Aguiar from Spain, who's in the dark jacket on the right, on the left of the picture, but on our right, and then Rebecca Sanchez from El Salvador, the two members of ICFS under the umbrella, got together in El Salvador, and Irene talked to a whole group of people about what's happening in sport and what's going on. And it just made me happy to see two of our members getting together in the Latin American world. And, I must say, we have Contraborado from Spain as under our umbrella, but we have also this Irene Aguiar is a lawyer, a sports lawyer. And she has just done such amazing work in calling out these males. And there's, Austin Killips in the middle there. And just the situation, I've said it before, at UCI is just ridiculous. But it's we're all doing the best we can to call things out and to bring it to people's attention. And on that note, we have a conference coming up in Denver in July. Denver, July 21 to 23. But Icons Women, again, a group under our umbrella, the ICFS umbrella, one of the American groups is hosting this. And of course, you can see that we're a co-sponsorship of this event. And there's just so many great speakers. Look at that. We've got Dr. Emma Hilton coming. We've got so many. I mean, this list of speakers is unbelievable. And we're just looking forward to it. And yeah, it's fantastic. And now I'm going to go into something absolutely completely different, of something I've been trying on the women's sports and women's sex-based rights. I just want to update you because it does impact sport, and I'm trying something differently here. Okay, so what happened was in Canada, the ruling the ruling parties are the Liberal Party, supported by the New Democrats. And there's just no way. It's so frustrating. After 5 years of being in this and speaking out about it, it's just hard to make progress. And the problem is always because the Canadian law is so ridiculous. I mean, at least in the UK, when you had the Equalities Act, you had sex-based exemptions. But in Canada, there was no such thing when Bill C-16 came in with Justin Trudeau. And Justin Trudeau and the NDPs, the coalition of the left-wing parties are just hopeless. So the only way to move the needle, possibly, I felt, was to engage in the Conservative Party. And I knew that the Conservative Party of Canada has a convention on policies every 4 years. And I knew 2023 would be another year for their policy. So I engaged in the fall of 2022. Yeah, this past about 8 months ago, into my local riding to see if I could get on the policy committee and try to put in a new policy that protects women and girls. And so they have this thing called, it's great. And the one thing I appreciate about the party is that there's this grassroots process where you have to become a policy chair, a delegate, and then you have the password to the Ideas Lab, where you can put in, there's 150 submissions from across the country on how to improve the party platform. And we're limited to 50 words. So my modification of the women on the policy on women policy, my submission is 999. So basically, and I was very limited, like the underlined part is what I have to add to the platform. And so basically, you can see there that I'm trying, in very brief words, trying to say what we mean by women. And of course, people have to agree. People have to agree to within the party what you're saying. And there was a lot of worry. So what I've said is this: for clarity, the term woman used throughout this Conservative Party policy declaration means female person. The Conservative Party of Canada believes that women are entitled to safety, dignity, and privacy of single-sex spaces, example, prisons, shelters, locker rooms, washrooms, and the benefit of women-only categories, example, sports, awards, grants, and scholarships. Now, some of the top brass in the Conservative Party, of course, are extremely worried about this because they think that the party will be labeled transphobic. And part of the stress testing of new ideas within the party is that you have to have at least 3 co-sponsorships. I had to get 3 co-sponsorships, which are really hard to get, from across the country by June 15th. So by a week ago, I had to have at least 3 co-sponsorships. But if you look at the co-sponsorships, I have 8 co-sponsorships. So I'm one of the top policies in terms of the support and co-sponsorships. So it's Kitchener Center, Kitchener-Conestoga, Vaughan Woodbridge, Vancouver South. So all these different ridings supported this policy submission. And that's not the end. That only goes through to a voting stage. And then we get to the convention in Quebec City in early September. And then I have to fight to be the top 30 in the country, top 30 policies that are to be inserted into the Conservative Party platform. I can say as of yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that my policy 999, protecting female sports, intimate spaces of women's rights, qualifies for voting in the convention. And basically, it is, because I have 8 co-sponsorships, I'm in the top 15 out of 150 policy submissions, which is encouraging only in the sense that it shows us that at the grassroots level, people in Canada really, really do support us. They want to see a movement on this. Despite what the party brass is worried about, it's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens with this, but wish me luck. That's just a little bit of a side project, but it could be really big, because if this party gets into power, they're probably going to be willing to amend the Bill C-16 to have sex-based rights. So the ICFS is really growing. We now have up to 500, some maybe 2 members short of 500 affiliate members. How do you become an affiliate member? So you basically go to the website where it shows the core members, affiliate members, and you just say, join our community. Give us, so tell us who you are. Give us your email. We'll have Carol talked about creating email lists. Well, this will be a good way if you really want to support women's sports. Contact us, join us. Our ultimate goal would be to have, some numbers, even half the numbers that Women's Declaration would have, just to show the international sports associations that we do speak for women in sport. We are the main voice across the world for women in sports as an organization. Collaboration is the way to go, ladies. And we all know that. If we need to stand together, and this is such a great time in history, because never in history have women from all over the world been able to connect on, what is essentially political issues. And so I would just say, tell people if they really want to support, just join us, tell us who you are, maybe donate $1 or $2. But I just want to assure you that there is a ton of things happening. And really, with respect to April, when I go back to April, the amount of emails and letters that have gone on behind the scenes trying to convince Canadian Powerlifting Union to be fair to April and her colleagues, her female colleagues, is just unbelievable. We are calling for the International Powerlifting Federation, IPF, to tell Canada if they don't honor and respect female athletes, and if they don't stop discriminating on the basis of sex, the Canadian Powerlifting Union should be kicked out, at least until they align their policies with something a little more sane with the international governing body. And what's happening right now is the international governing body has one set of policies, which makes it very difficult. It's still not perfect, but it requires trans person to declare who they are and have all these mitigations of testosterone, everything. In Canada, you just go into a competition as a male and just say, today I feel like a woman, and you can compete. And it's just, there's no gatekeeping, and it's unbelievable. So anyway, the fight continues, the struggle goes on, and we will be here. We're here for women in sport. And if we need to advocate on behalf of people, we will do so, especially female athletes who are very frightened, and even coaches, female coaches, and officials, people who are afraid to speak out. We can represent them as a group, and it gives us a certain amount of leverage to be able to do that without putting anybody at risk. So that's the end. Thank you.
The final talk today is launching membership for WDI, and I'm going to read out our membership invitation, which is actually, we have put it on our website. Now, we've been talking about this in the country contacts and activist meeting and in the directors of WDI for a long time, and taking ideas. But if you can think of something better and you see that it's not a perfect way of going forward, do just get in touch, and we'll try this and then see how it goes. So we're delighted to report that as a result of the support, this is the letter that's going to go out, and the hard work of so many women volunteers committed to preserving women's sex-based rights on a non-partisan basis, we've grown far beyond our early hopes. We have more than 35,000 signatories, and hundreds of women participate in our weekly Feminist Question Time and Radical Feminist Perspectives. With the support, which we've had fantastic support of amazing volunteers and donors, we've been able to produce and share video recordings of all our programs. And our working groups and task forces have produced letters, platforms, policy proposals, and organisational position papers that we have shared with numerous national and international organisations, legislative and judicial bodies. We're now looking for our sisterhood to support a membership model in the future, so that we can do even more to advance women's sex-based rights in the face of gender identity ideology. We want to increase the number of our signatories to 50,000 by the end of 2023, to create a task force to mount serious and effective opposition at the level of international organisations, including the European Union and the United Nations. Strengthen the feminist barrier against more countries implementing gender self-identity. Support women's resistance to gender identity ideology globally via our webinars, education programs, and country contact structures. We want to create accessible online resources, including databases of international references and up-to-date information about the state of gender identity ideology across the globe, and develop training resources to make us all more effective advocates for women's rights. If you are a woman, we invite you to join us as a member of the WDI Sisterhood. Membership is open to all women, adult human females 18 years or older, who oppose gender identity ideology and have signed the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights. When you become a member, you'll take a place in our international community of women working to advance women's rights in accordance with the principles we've all committed to in the Declaration. WDI members connect with like-minded women near and far in their own countries and across the world to share information and experiences, develop working relationships and skills, and use the power of our women's community to combat gender identity ideology. To strengthen the WDI community and its political efforts, we offer members the following ways to develop and use the knowledge base, organisational and advocacy skills we need to continue our critical work. So members will get these additional things. So much of what we do already will be available to everybody, but there'll be a couple of extra things that members get. So invitations to member-only webinars, and we're going to have our first special member-only webinar in September 2023. Newsletter updates, which will be from time to time. Online and in-person webinars about our latest policy and litigation initiatives. Again, from time to time, it's not going to replace what we're doing. It will be an additional thing. Opportunities to participate in surveys we use to develop program content. And we have not got this yet, but I want to get a free patch, and the patch will be better than this because it will be the WDI logo. So I'll put it down, and it's going to be, so it will be really just the logo, and it will be one of those sort of embroidered patches that you can put on over one of these go woke, go broke logos. So I don't know if this logo on my hat has gone trans identity ideology, but what we're thinking is that you'll get a free patch, and then you can sew it on over the logo of your clothes. So you don't have to buy new clothes. You can recycle old clothes, but you can upgrade them to get rid of the bad logo. And look at this. This, I'm going to just move this a little bit so I can show you, hopefully. So say, for instance, this lovely shirt that I've got, which I really like, I would be able to sew on my patch on top of it and carry on. Bob's your uncle. Well, maybe Sheila's your aunt, or Karen's your auntie. But that will be fantastic because it means that we can very easily get that to you. We're hoping to get an online shop with these patches, so different size patches. And then we're also, well, this is my idea, that I'd love this. In our in-person meetings, we'll have sewing experts to help you to sew on the logo if you're really rubbish at sewing. So we'll have a couple of volunteer sewers. So you bring your clothes along and buy some patches and we'll sew them all on. So I think that's my dream scenario, but we haven't got that bit of the patches up and running yet, but we'll aim to get that soon. So our immediate new goals, apart from the patches, include increasing our numbers and initiating directed opposition in national and international forums. Now, how to become a member? You can be a donor member or an activist member or both. So you can be both. If you're a donor member, you can donate through our Patreon page. We've got one-time or monthly donations directly to our bank, or set up a standing order to donate if you can from your bank. And we're hoping to make a couple of other options to make it even easier and more versatile for donating. But for the moment, the link that is on the website on the news page works just to get to our donations. Now, if you are a donor member and you donate directly to our bank, we don't get your email. So if you could send us your email to info@womensdeclaration.com, then we'll know, and then we'll be able to put you on the list and send you a patch and invite you to these member-only events. And if you have donated in the past, you will be a donor member. So as long as we've got your email, so there might be a few glitches, there might be a couple of people who we, for some reason, haven't got the email. So if you feel you are a donor member and you've been overlooked, let us know. You can become an activist member. So you don't need to donate to be a member. And also, in fact, you could donate as much or as little as you want. So you don't have to, there's no cutoff point for how much you donate in order to be a member. So it's like we had a conference in the UK, and you could come by donating what you could in order to come to the conference. So it's not going to be a large amount. You could, whatever you can afford. But you could just be an activist member, and you could do some or all of the following. Share information you've learned in the WDI webinars, presentations, and FQ2, and conversations with family, friends, and neighbours, or on social media. So in some ways, our activism is more important than the donations, because we're sharing the word. Let others know about the WDI's video library of feminist conferences, conversations, and book discussions. Use the skills you've gained through WDI training webinars. And there's also the US site. There are sites with loads of information and training webinars on the USA site. So that's another place to go. Participate in formal advocacy efforts led by WDI, or get your own going. And if you need support from WDI, get it, or use the declaration. You could buy and wear the WDI clothes. We do have some clothes, particularly there's a shop that the USA group have. So you could get stuff from there, or merchandise, and we'll put a link to that. And then this patch thing, and we're hoping to make it even more easy to get stuff in different parts of the world. And we also have a, if you have been an activist in the past, and you find that you can't be an activist anymore because of other commitments, then what we'll do is we can give you life membership for, so it doesn't, we don't want to make this exclusive. So if a woman has to take time off, or has done loads of work for WDI, or even some work, who wants to be a member, but then can't for a range of different reasons, you will still be able to stay a member. So it's not, this is meant to be an opportunity for women to get involved and to feel part of something, to have a membership. And it will also be good for us to strengthen our organisation, but it's not aiming to exclude anybody who wants to be in it. So if you're thinking all of this means you can't be a member, then, and if there is something we've forgotten, then just email and we'll try to include that. Yeah, and that's it. So that's fantastic. So we've finished in time for the end of the webinar. So thank you very much for listening to that. Any ideas about how to make that better, please do get in touch.